Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, y'all. How is everybody doing? Hey, it is good to be back in this space. And if you are not familiar with the space nor this face, I am Dr. Tam. I am your empowerment coach, and welcome to the Her podcast. I am excited. You might can tell us a little bit more in my voice today, right? And that's because, y'all, we're live today. Not only live, I mean live as in you can see me, right? You can see me. You can see me and you can hear me. Because normally we do the audio because I want you to be safe as drivers. If you happen to be listening, don't be worried about looking at the screen or anything. We're doing it different today. We're doing it different because this is a special day. We have a guest.
Hey y'all.
So we can't cut up. We got company. We got company, okay? But I am excited to have our first ever on air guest, Selina, the
Yay.
DisruptHER Coach, okay? I don't want to steal any light from her because she is full of it. I am going to let her to jump in and tell us about who she is. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to add a little something to it. All right.
Oh,
So
all
Selena,
right.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tam, for having me. I
Absolutely.
appreciate this. And what an honor to be your first guest. I have a lot of gratitude in that honor. Thank you. This is so
Perfect.
rich.
This is perfect. This is perfect. So you identify yourself as the Disrupt Her Coach,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about the Disrupt Her Coach. What exactly is that? How did you get to define yourself as the Disrupt Her Coach?
As a profession, for a number of years, double digit years, I worked in business continuity and disaster recovery. So I literally help people make strategic decisions during a disruption. And so I'm really hella good at it. Oops. Am
You good.
I'm good at it.
We gonna be ourselves. Don't worry about
All
that.
right, all right. And then on my journey, after I um, suffered a disconnection from myself and I took on my first life coach, I realized that I've been coaching for free for over 30 years, that this is
Mhm,
actually a profession.
mhm,
And while I was healing in my journey and taking on my first, because I needed me, somebody
yeah,
that showed up the way I needed that support, and I needed to just be able to have some strategy and talk through things with someone,
mhm,
um, to get back to myself. And I
mhm.
realized, I was like, I could do this. I didn't realize it was a profession, and really realize that, okay, this was my calling. It's what I would do for free.
Wow.
And on that journey, initially I was showing up as Selena's Jewels because I used to sell jewelry.
Okay.
And then on that journey, I also had a podcast. I would go live on social media, Facebook and Instagram. I think I did that for about 2 years. On that journey, Disrupt Her, the name Disrupt Her came in my path. And I started looking at it. There's a woman that wrote a book, and I apologize, I can't remember her name, around Disrupt Her. And I was like, that just felt just right for me because I've never been one to specifically maintain the status quo. And
Mhm.
I was really interested in disrupting some things. My life had been disrupted in a way that I did not see coming. And I feel like that's sometimes is really what's required, right? We get comfortable, and in
Mhm.
order to really grow and pursue what God really has for you, what your true essence and design you were created for, there's
Mhm.
going to be some disruption,
Right.
right? And I literally, as a profession and now in my calling, help other Christian women walk through the journey of disruption that they experience.
Mm.
Specifically, if they have been have cut ties and they're struggling with who they are after narcissistic relationships. I help them to know their power, their divine identity, and then so that they can have enough energy, strength, and capacity to go on and live that purposeful life that God has called them to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That is so good. That is so good. That is why, thank you for explaining that to us. And because I didn't know all of that. I knew of Disrupt Her Coach, and I had a little bit of background about just that piece alone. But of course, as you just explained, it's so much more to that. But
Mhm.
that makes you perfect, a perfect guest for this space, for the Her podcast, because here in the Her podcast, that is what we talk about. We talk about things, all things healing, all things empowerment, and all things
Mhm.
restoration. And just
Absolutely.
after women, as women who have gone through traumatic experiences, like you mentioned, narcissistic relationships, as well as other experiences where their lives have been disrupted.
Absolutely.
And now,
Absolutely.
in order for them to get back on track, it kind of sounds weird, but even to get back on track, you got to disrupt something else because you have to now
Absolutely.
disrupt that which disrupted you. And so that makes you perfect for our space. And so I am so excited to have you and know that you're already going to add value to this space. And so just thank you again for being here.
Thank you
Uh,
for having me.
Yes, you gave us a little bit about your that you did this as a profession, like that disrupt, like you did this as your profession. What was,
Absolutely.
can you, if you don't mind, can you go to that moment? Was there a pivotal moment that kind of sticks out in your mind where you began to shift from just it being a career to now being your life's purpose?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, when I realized I needed to to have me, I was in a narcissistic, toxic marriage, and then when we got divorced, I really went inward because I needed to figure out. I was like, well, how in the world did I end up here? Like, what is going on with me that I didn't understand and know this. So one of the things, 3 months into the marriage, um, I'm thinking we don't know how to communicate. Like something's off, right? That was the indicator. And I suggested us do counseling because maybe we needed communication skills to do
Mhm.
that. I had been widowed for almost 25 years. He had been married for 30. I'm Christian. He identifies as Jehovah Witness. So there were some dynamics, and I was like, let's go talk to somebody. So we get a counselor, older woman, black woman, middle age. I needed somebody to understand the dynamics of religion, black families, household, not have to like literally be educating them while we're
Right.
working through our dynamics. And right away, as I'm telling my story and everything, she tells me he's a narcissist. This 3 months into the marriage. And he's like, oh, totally. And I'm like, what? What? And so
So
I
he agreed with that.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I believe that they tell the truth. It's whether or not you want to accept the truth and believe what the person is saying. But yeah, he told the truth, and I was like, I've heard that word, but maybe I don't understand what that really means. And she
mhm.
said to me, she gave me all these worksheets, but she said, I need you to understand what you're getting into. And one of those worksheets was 10 characteristics of a narcissist. He had nine.
Wow.
Exactly. And so I continue to go for a minute to the therapy. And then I start realizing, well, this isn't a we problem. This is a you problem. And you
Mhm.
have to decide if you're going to do something about it or not. And of course, he said he would and all that. And I'm like, I'm cool. And so I'm in that I'm because what I the ultimatum was that if you weren't going to do anything about it, I wanted a divorce
Right.
right in, right? And as I was pondering that and reflection and things, I was pondering how good God had been to me, and I know I was a hot mess, right? And so that there was that I was going to extend grace
Hmm.
because everything is not black and white.
Right, right. The same
And
grace that had been
I
extended
was
to you.
yeah, and I was leaning
Right,
into the fact that I was I'm a Christian woman. I wanted to, be a Christian wife per se. I
right.
wanted to you know, exude the grace that I would want if I were in the
Right.
same situation and
Mhm.
all of those things. And in that process, though, I became disconnected from myself because I was compromising so much. It was like playing chess all the time, based upon the things that were happening. And we were also running, well, I was running the business. He was the face of the business. We had our barbecue catering business, and I did everything behind the scenes, like all of the strategy, the social media, the bookkeeping, the event planning, like all of the things. And I was still working a full time job.
Wow.
And so, in compromising, a lot of times, it would be to just prevent him from doing things that just were not aligned with who I wanted to be in the marriage, in business, like all of the things. So after a while, some with the compromises, it was just taking me further and further away from who I was until
Hmm.
the point where I didn't even know. At the time, my name was Selina Whitmore. I did not know her. I could not identify with her, and so the big defining moment was I was attending the hall with him, and I started realizing that I wasn't being fed, and I stopped going. And I really was seeking like what was for me in this season as a church home, because I had relocated to Las Vegas. I wasn't living in my hometown anymore, and then he came there and we got married and all of that, and so I was still seeking like a church home.
Hmm.
And um in this little place, I was following this couple. They had a marriage ministry, and I didn't know where they were because it was online. And then all of a sudden, one day, I saw they post something, and they were actually in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And I was like, hmm. And so then I realized, oh, they actually have a church. They're pastors. And so I find the place is literally like 15 minutes from my house. I
Hmm.
go one Sunday, and I go up to meet the pastors, and it's a husband and wife. They're doing ministry and co-pastoring together. And I go to introduce myself to her, and I say to her, it's the first time I said this out loud. I didn't know this was getting ready to come out of my mouth. I said, I don't know who I am.
Wow.
So that was the defining moment where I really, I feel like innately I always had business continuity and disaster recovery instincts because I've lived more life than most people. I've been married 3 times. I've widowed, like I said, for 25 years, raised my son, um, as a single parent, like all of the things and the dynamics that you can kind of go through. I feel like I've had 3 lives. And so I am good at beginning anew. Most people like to say starting over, but you're not starting over. You're a different person. You're in different seasons than you were. So I am gifted in restoration and starting anew and all of those things. And now it was time to figure out, because for me, the most valuable asset that I have is me,
Right.
and I lost me.
Right.
So I wanted support, um, to be able to do that. So I also took on my first therapist, to help me like figure out like what was going on in me. So I had the support of a therapist and a coach at the same time because I needed to figure out my past and what was going on, because I thought I had already done that when I went through grief counseling about my husband's death and all of those things. And there were still so many layers of things underneath there: codependency, abandonment, yeah, a lot of that. So yeah. I know that was a long way to get there, hopefully.
No, 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 no. That was very, and thank you for sharing that, because I believe that even that was purposeful. You may not have intended to share all of that, but it's that something that you have shared. Like I said before, when we were having prayer, that I hope that it lands on the hearts of those who need to hear it, and to
Absolutely.
let her know, whomever she is out there, to let her know that she's not in it by herself. She's not the only one who perhaps have had those sort of experiences. But you made it some a really really good points in you sharing and kind of telling us a little bit more about who you are on your journey of working with both a therapist and a coach at
Mm-hmm.
the same time. And I'm assuming that you had gone to the church, and so you were also getting that spiritual guidance from
Absolutely.
the couple as well.
Absolutely. She prayed with me right away. And I was at that point, I was really struggling. I was raw, I was tender, I was feeling confused. I was really struggling. I was
Mm,
really, 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 really struggling because everything in me just wanted to just stop.
yeah.
And and there was just so much confusion going on. No peace, not a minute to myself, and things like that. And and it would be crazy because, like, one minute things would be like, oh, lovey dovey, and worship the ground I walk on. And then
Mm,
next thing you know, it would be nuts. And it
mhm,
was like, I would lay in the bed and I would be like, Lord, I know this could not be what you had in mind for me. I know this could not be what you had in mind for me. And at
yeah.
the time when we decided to get married and things, we had already known each other for, I want to say, almost maybe 30 years. We met the day I came from maternity leave with my son. So it was, my baby's 32 now. So at least maybe it had been about 25 years. When you go through stuff, the lines get blurred on them times.
Kind of lose track of time, huh?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And when we reconnected over Facebook, and we were just talking, which one I couldn't believe that I'd seen him on Facebook and all of that. It felt like that was the direction. And I
Mhm,
believe it was direction because it led me to my calling.
mhm,
Um, at
mhm.
in hindsight and all of those things, even though it wasn't ideal experience and things like that, it was definitely. I feel like it wasn't happening to me; it was happening for me.
Or, mhm, mhm,
Hmm.
absolutely. And that's the part, because I know that as women, and you and I have kind of shared a little bit, and we have very similar experiences, especially the part about like not knowing devastation, disaster, disruption in our lives. And then you find yourself in this place, who am I? Like literally saying that out loud, questioning, like, because you lose yourself going through other things. And I know that we are not the only ones who
Right.
have those experiences. I want to ask you, what kept you going? There was no peace, there was chaos, there's confusion, of course, disruption, but what kept you going?
It had to be faith. It was faith. It was community. I had one friend, and I never told him that I was suffering in silence. I never
Mhm,
really said anything, but they really saw me. I had two friends, and one would call me out of the blue. She was like, I need the line and the friendship that you got with God. Cause God will put you on my mind. She would just call me out of the blue and it would just be right on time. And
yeah.
I remember one day she said to me, and I don't know that I was contemplating this, but it was what I needed to hear at the time. She said to me, God forgives all sin, even
Mm,
divorce. And I never forgot that. I was like, oh my Lord. Because maybe I had been grappling with it because I was suffering. I was suffering in silence. I was struggling. And then also being in community, my faith-based community with that smaller, it was a little tiny small church, but just so powerful. And I had come from a mega church being back home, so I just knew that I was going to end up at another mega church and serving and all of that. But this little tiny church called the Riverborn saved my life. Those women and those members rather, just very diverse, eclectic group, and they saw me. They wrapped their arms around me, all the things. So being in community, I also had a Bible study, which I still do, that I've been a member of now for over 15 years. And we would meet the first Saturday of every month and have Bible study. And we would pick a new book that we would be going through to study.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember the book at this time, but those are the things that held me. Because when you talk about some prayer warriors, the River prayer team and Exhort, they were on the wall and warring for me, because ultimately what I had gone through and what I was experiencing was spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. 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 We already there. Let's go with it. Look, we said we're just gonna let the spirit have its way with this, but I know that
All right.
this is landing on the hearts where it needs to be. So let's go there, because I that's not something we hear there. It is a very real thing.
Absolutely, for sure. And I could feel that, like I said, I could feel something, that something was off.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't put my finger on it. And
Mm-hmm.
then my prayer, I would be laying in the bed at night like, Lord, I know this could not be what you had in mind for me, because I knew that I was doing everything with intention, um, and it being the Lord's will.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the prayer, making sure that my heart was right. I was doing things out of care, concern, and regard. I can't say um, I was loving, but it wasn't necessarily like out of being in love,
Mm-hmm.
because I also knew that I married him, that I loved him, but I was not in love with him.
Mm.
If
You
that
knew that
makes
you knew that going in.
Absolutely. I've been married 3 times, and they all had a reason, a season, and a purpose.
Mm.
Um, and so, and part of it was, before we got married, I had been given this vision. I had been given this vision around the business, and I was praying, Lord, is this your will, and all of those things. And I wasn't telling him. I didn't tell him that the Lord had given me this vision. But I believed that the vision was to help him, because as I was praying and this relationship was forming again, because we had been in relationship prior to that when I first met him for 3 years. And then I'm like, like, what's going on? Like, is this real or whatever? So I wasn't saying anything, because I was letting things unfold and let the
Mm-hmm.
Lord reveal what this was. And then I had been given the word compliment. And then the next thing you know, he started using the word. And I'm like, what? Like, what? What? So then we started getting closer. He asked me to marry him, and I believed I knew him. I From when I knew him back then, he seemed like his walk had changed. Things were better, and all of the things. Now, in full disclosure, back then, 3 years ago, my husband had just died. I had had a baby, not my husband's baby. I got pregnant after my husband died, because we were trying to get pregnant. And then I meet him the day that I come back from maternity leave, the very first day. I go to work for his family, his father specifically, in their restaurant to make extra money to pay for my babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted somebody to come in the house, be with my baby while I was working. And so then a relationship formed in my grief. I didn't know I was grieving. He was the first person to even tell me that I was grieving. And he was a married man. Now, I wasn't necessarily raised like that or any of that, hindsight and all these things.
Right.
However, he treated me the way that my husband treated me. And so
Okay.
it felt right. He wanted me to be a kept woman, all of these things. And I was used to that. So I wanted that. Now, mind you, I'm also living with my son's father, someone that I knew, that I had known, and all of that. And we end up connecting, and I end up getting pregnant. So
Okay.
again, not somebody that I was in love with, mostly out of circumstance, because the Lord was adamant about the fact that I was going to have that baby that I didn't think I was going to have. And so I tried to make it work with him and all of those things. And then I'm in this 3-year affair with this guy, and then he decides he wants to tell his wife, once I broke it off with my son's father, and seeing that that's not, that's just not the path. He had his own demons. And so I go on my way, right? And being in relationship with him, it didn't feel horrible. Let me say that. He was good to me at the time and all of those things, but I also worked for them. And so then I lost my job. And for me, that felt like the consequences of fooling around with a married man, right?
Mm.
And I just went on my way. I accepted that. And then when we reconnected, and then to get all of this vision around the business and everything, because I had also gone, during that time, I was working for he and his brother, and I was managing their restaurant. So they have been in business, because that's what I did before I did business continuity and disaster recovery. I managed a number of fast food restaurants. So
Okay.
highly gifted and good at what I do. And so they asked me to come away and run and help them run their franchise. We were creating a franchise. So I did that. And so then when we reconnected, he had a strong desire to like start his own thing and all of that. We hadn't even talked about that before I got that vision. I already had the vision, like the whole blueprint for everything. And so after the marriage and all of those things, what I recognized, that's part of the reason that I was still in it, because I was carrying out that vision. I was
Mm.
holding on to that vision that I had been into. And that's when it's the Lord, right? Because the thing won't leave you alone. Even
Mhm.
in all of the circumstances, it was the one thing that was kind of the mission that I felt that was for us. And so when I um when I went inward after, so the marriage lasted for 4 years. We were actually married. By the third year, I was like, I'm done. This just not working out. You got to go. Three is completion. We done tried. This ain't working, because you ain't doing all the things. And I wasn't the best, because I recognized that I was in defense mode, because there was just something all the time that felt like, how is the person that's supposed to love me, protect me, honor me, take care of me, when you keep doing all these things to me?
Right.
It just was not adding up. It created so much confusion. And so I had put him out. I'm like, I'm done. We just ain't gonna make it. So I was going to be in some friend's wedding. They took him in. So I started feeling like, okay, this is my problem. I got a whole brand new house, 4 bedroom. He can go in the guest room until he finds a place and then be gone. Well, I let him come back in. He hadn't even been in the house a week. He had a stroke. I became his full-time caregiver.
Wow.
And I'm like, Lord, I'm like, I know I can't be the woman to divorce the man on his deathbed, because it was fatal at the time. And so I just went into servant heart servant mode, like, and just did all of the things that I knew to do. One, is innately what I do. I respond in the event of a disruption. I am calm in the midst of chaos. And
Mhm.
that is my logo for the Disruptor Coach. When you see it, it looks like a mess, but it's beauty in the chaos. And I just went into action. And so for 6 months ultimately, and there was so imagine there wasn't a stroke or anything going on, and then there's chaos, and forgive me, I didn't want to, yeah, it is what it is. I didn't like revealing somebody else's medical history, but and so with that at play, then it became more aggressive, more dangerous, because they weren't really accepting the diagnosis. They were acting like they still, doing all of the things, and I couldn't leave him. I couldn't leave him in the house alone. He would want to drive, like all of these crazy things, and it's just like no, no, no. It was unsafe. I had to take out more insurance, umbrella policy just to cover because we had a business and, nice things and all
Right.
of that. And, I'm the Disrupt Her coach. And so I already know what it means to have the level of protection that you need in the event of a disruption. So I'm, just doing what I naturally do. And then, after going through that for about 6 months, it just really got clear. It's like, I'm done. I decided that I gotta go. That
Mm-hmm.
I can't live this life like this, because that's when it got at its worst. I didn't feel safe with him.
Okay.
My safety was shot, and I didn't want to be in the same house with him anymore. And so once he did the thing that was the final straw, I was like, I'm gonna give you two choices. You can leave now, or you can leave. When you leave to go take care of this business that he
Mm-hmm.
was so called doing, you won't be able to come back here. All of your things will be gone. They'll be in storage. So you decide. And I went to work that day. And when I went to work and came home, he had moved all of his things out and all of the equipment for the business, because I gave him the business. So
Mm-hmm.
you can take all of it, but you got to go. And so I knew I had been waiting on a sign. And that was my sign. Once he moved out, I was like, game on. I'm filing for divorce. I had already started seeing my therapist so that I could come out of this situation whole. This kind of like wasn't my first rodeo, in the fact that I, know what it looks like to be grieving and to going through something. And I wanted to, just take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened on a Tuesday. By Saturday, he sent me this crazy text message. Now, mind you, I own two homes. They were both on the same street. Unbeknownst to me, when he moved out, he moved out in the other house because it was up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go down there to take the things and all of the things that he had left behind and give him what for. Because I'm saved, but I'm still ain't nobody to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was done, 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 like done. And so I go down there and I'm like, come outside. Because he was also in there with the person that I called a handler, somebody that I'd allowed to live in our space to be able to help me with him so that I could take myself back to work, because I needed some distance. And so he comes out, he's sitting on the bumper of his car, and he's like rolling his eyes. And then all of a sudden I look at him and this warm sensation comes over me and I feel like I'm going to throw up. And I look at him and his face is dark purple.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like, for me, like he was presenting as a devil, is what entered my spirit. And now I'm afraid, but I don't want to show that I'm afraid. And I say what I got to say and I go running back down the street to my house. And I'm just undone. I'm like unnerved, could not get a hold of myself, because it was then in that moment when that happened that I realized that's what it was. It was a demonic presence this whole time. And I
Wow.
could not put my finger on it.
But you knew it was something.
I knew it was something.
Wow.
I knew it was something. And my spirit had stopped talking to me because I had stopped listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of those things where it's like, you can't do that. You can never override the spirit.
Quench not.
That's why you have your intuition. It is there to protect you. You have to follow it. Have to.
That is
Um,
so that is so good. You mentioned everything that was going on. And just when you think you're ready to step out, then he has a stroke. And so you end up staying to care for this person who you know is bringing this chaos and confusion into your
Yes. And then it got worse. It got
mm,
worse.
time where he was sick, and it's getting worse. But and the reason I want to go back to that is because I even know what that feels like, going to, and we're not the only ones. But how is it? What was that moment for you? You felt that it was something, it was later revealed to you down the road, but once you said, how did you get the strength to finally say, "Hey, I can't do this anymore," and walk away? Because so many of us, we stay stuck. We stay
Right.
stuck in unhealthy situations, and we know that they are unhealthy.
Right. I feel like there were three stages because, right, when I first found out, I was still committed. Right. When I first found out that that was what was happening, I was still committed. I stayed in it. And over time, there's just so many things that just kept breaking my trust. He would do just enough to 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 kind of satisfy things.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
there would be something else that would happen that would be even more crazy and erotic. It was like there were two different lives that he was living. Like I was living with two different people.
People.
And then it got to a point where I felt like I can't keep giving these wife privileges and you mistreating me
Mhm.
and abusing me. So one of the breaks was I end up he had there would be things where he would jump on a plane and go back to Cleveland. His family member would just send him a plane ticket and we're running a whole business. And it's like that just can't keep happening. So
Mhm.
after the third time, I was really pissed. And I saw the email come through. Now mind you, I'm managing all the tech. I see the email come through and he's getting on a plane that night. This was 4th of July.
Wow.
And I'm pissed. He's also in the kitchen preparing to do a catering order. And so there is a carton of milk. I'm so mad. I grabbed the carton of milk and I slammed it on the table. Milk went everywhere. He went running out of um the house into the garage. So I locked the door. Probably had been out there if 2 minutes. I unlocked the door and I just, started cleaning up or whatever. While he was out there, he called the police.
Wow.
Unbeknownst to me, and the police came maybe an hour and a half later. I don't know how long it was. And everything's cleaned up. And I happened to go out in the garage for something. And they got him on the car. So I'm wondering, like, what's going on? Now, we live in a gated community.
Mhm.
So like, why are the police here? And why do they have my husband on the car? I'm thinking, right? And so one of the policemen comes and asks me to go inside. And I learned that he called, and I'm telling them that I was really upset because he keeps lying and all of these things. And I read the email and all of the things, and I told him what I did, that I slammed the milk car. I explained everything that I did.
Mhm.
And he told me to put my hands up against the wall and arrested me. I ain't never been in trouble like that in my life. And what he said was that they have a requirement in a domestic violence situation, which there were so many things that I never even considered, right? Domestic violence, like all that just like blew my wig off.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
I'm hearing these words and he's putting handcuffs on me in my own home, like all of these things, right? He says we've learned that when we separate people in domestic violence situations for a minimum of 12 hours that it saves lives.
Wow.
So he takes me in the police car. My husband's standing there watching with the police and all that. Now, mind you, he's all supposed to be leaving to get on a plane to go back to our hometown.
Mhm.
I'm I'm like I'm like, it was just not making no sense.
Mhm.
Like, how in the world did this just happen? Now, logically, I understood what the policeman was saying. So while they're driving me in the police car, I also have bowel and bladder issues. So
Okay.
now I'm feeling like I need to go to the bathroom, and now I'm afraid that I'm gonna pee on myself.
Mhm.
Because he ain't in no hurry to get me to the police station or anything, right? So I have in the back of the police car, I have a panic attack. First time that ever happened. I didn't know what that was like. And
Wow.
so I get there in enough time, get in the bathroom, and I'm just in there and I'm just a mess. So now there's a woman that she comes, she's checking on me and everything because they know that I really shouldn't be there. I can tell that they know that I shouldn't be there. And so then they take you and you do this intake and they ask you questions. And the question was, had I ever been mentally, verbally, physically, and sexually abused? And I found myself saying yes. I could not believe the words that were coming out of my mouth. And so this is the first time that I'm really, really telling these stories. So I apologize if it
Wow.
takes a minute to get to that.
That's fine. That's fine.
And I was shooketh. And then they put me in that cell, and it was supposed to be 12 hours. It was longer than 12 hours. It was a little bit longer than 24. But there were other women in there much younger than me that I could see were in the same situations as they were talking. They were afraid. And all I felt like is I could remember Paul. And I
Mm.
wanted to
Yeah.
serve others and not focus on myself so that I wouldn't be consumed by what I'm dealing with. And
Mhm.
so I was talking to one young lady. She had gone through something, and she was had a same sex partner and all of that, and she was Asian, so that was like really taboo for her. So she was afraid, and probably a little bit on the might hurt herself,
Mm.
you know. And so I did that, and just one by one, each woman did get to leave, but it was the same situation, kind
Wow.
of like they didn't necessarily um they weren't really the aggressor, but
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that and then they all left, and I was still left there all by myself for probably 12 hours.
Wow.
So that was a lot to just calm myself and pray. And I prayed the entire time Psalms 23.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
is that is my go-to prayer in all things. For the Lord is my shepherd.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I it just that's what kept me calm. Um and all of that,
Yeah.
and going through that. So it had been a lot of that for me to get to the point was like, yeah, I'm done. Now I took him back after that happened. It was a lot of grace because it was just a lot going on with the business, and I really wanted to make sure that I was being the Christian that I was supposed to be.
Mhm.
So my pastors helped me walk through a lot of that, because when I tell you I was raw, and he did get on that plane, it was a lot. And so what I say that to say, sometimes,
He did get on the plane that night, so while
oh yeah,
you're
he left.
in
My
jail.
family told him he better not be there when I get there.
Wow.
Oh yeah, my family don't play that. We don't play that. And so I understood that and everything. And my heart was to, I felt like it was a what would Jesus do type situation, for the fact that I just didn't know what to do, because I never saw myself in that situation. So I understand it. People question like, well, why would you stay or whatever? But that was definitely the break that was the deciding factor in not being as committed, right?
Mhm.
That now I was going to I was in the process of cutting ties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was the moment when I knew, okay, Lord, I know you know. Like, so let me prepare myself, because I knew I was preparing for it to end.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was going to look like, when, how long, any of that, but I knew that I was preparing for it to end. I remember that night when I came home, that I journal. I feel like I journaled for 12 hours.
Wow.
I was a big journaler, just getting it all out. Just
Mm-hmm.
getting it all out and everything. I didn't know how, when, but my spirit was just like, journal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And through all of that, that's the one thing that I knew was a constant. I could journal. I look back now, because now I'm still dealing with mental health challenges that arose out of that, because I also, once I got through that, I went to work for somebody that had the same energy, and it was triggering me, and it created what do they call it, PTSD,
Yeah.
trauma
Mm-hmm.
stressors, because it was making me feel like I was back there in the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's not for the faint of heart. It's not light work. It's the type of thing that you have to have lived through it to even understand the amount of impact, the invisible scars that it creates, the
Mm-hmm.
damage that it does, like all of the things. It's difficult to do it alone, and I see so many women do it alone, or doing it and believing, part of it is too, right? I believed, I'm going to talk about anybody else. I believed that I needed a man, a husband, for me to have this type of life and to have this business and all of these things. And I feel a lot of it is because it's what I learned it from biblical teaching. And I believe that that's bad teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
believe that until you really go through something that's going to stretch you beyond your capacity, and that you really, really, really get in relationship with God, you really just, and let me say, not you, I was looking through things through somebody else's lenses, that
Right.
I was walking
Right.
around with foggy lenses for a very long time, and I'm talking more than 30 years.
That is so,
Real
that
talk.
right there alone is so powerful and so important. You said a lot of very important things you just shared that I want to touch on, but that one right there, I believe, is one of the most important. Having that relationship and knowing God for who He is for yourself. Yes, we go to church, and I've shared before, growing up in church, um,
Me too.
moving from the country up to the big city, and hooking up with a church that was similar to, kind of felt like my church back at home, but through all of that, there was the religion, but there was not the relationship.
Absolutely.
And so it's living through somebody else's definition, even what a Christian, how a Christian woman should show up, what she should or should not do. It's all of that. And you said it. It's false. It's false teaching.
Yeah.
And that is the importance of, studying the word for yourself and knowing for yourself what is in there, not just sitting up under somebody else or listening on a show or something, a podcast or radio, because even a lot of it now, that's how the information is disseminated out to
Right.
us, right? It's not just on in church on Sunday mornings. So know for yourself, pick up the word for yourself and know for yourself, and know that you do have that power and that authority that's within inside of you as well.
Absolutely.
Build that relationship, ask him, right? Um, to purify your heart so that you can get back in relationship with him. But that I definitely agree with that. Another really important point that you mentioned was about preparation. And in hindsight, they say hindsight is the best sight, right? Because as you look back and it's like a different set of eyes that you are
Yeah.
seeing things. But as you look back, you kind of start, oh, well, I didn't, oh. Oh, that's a red flag. Okay. Oh, that's a red flag. Oh, okay. But you having done that, still in it, but you started preparing because you
Absolutely.
knew you were about to shift. You were
Yep.
ready to shift.
Yep. I had had enough. Yeah.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. If there is, and we're just about to wrap up. This is one of our longest episodes, but it has been so good. I'm sitting here as you're sharing your story, and some of the mess that you've gone through, but you're using all of that for this message to other women to empower them, to help them to
Right.
discover who they truly are as well.
Right.
It's absolutely beautiful. And it's amazing how we can look back at such ugly things in our lives, but now we see the beauty of it because all of it is being used to help somebody else.
Absolutely. I'm grateful. Nothing's wasted. And what I was able to do once I got the clearance that this was done, I walked away from that with no I forgave right away. I got rid of everything. Everything, photos, everything, digitally, everything, cuz I was done.
Mm,
Done. And that's what you have to do in order to move forward. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about all of these things. Like I was holding on to so much of the past for such a long time.
mm,
Um, and then when I got married, I was holding on to a lot of stuff in the future, like what the business was going to be like and all of that. I wasn't in the present. God only exists in the
mhm.
present. It also gave me my framework for my coaching. I live through it, like, and it
Yeah,
it all kind of like unfolded, not all at once, a little bit at a time. The
right.
funny thing, I already had two parts of the framework, which I didn't even know. The last piece of the framework was the first piece of the framework,
Mm.
and it's presence. You need to be present in your
Yep,
own life,
yep,
right?
yep.
And we walk through in presence. First is getting to know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then
Hmm.
becoming yourself, and then the I am, the being yourself.
Right,
In those
right.
pillars, then, and that's key. That's where all of the magic happens for you to come back home, come back to yourself.
I love that. I love that. That is so beautiful. If you, our final words here for a young lady, a sister within our community
Mm-hmm.
who she's still in there. She's still in there. Or maybe she has just come out. What are some words of empowerment that you can leave for her? She might be teetering right there on that, like just fresh out. She's still kind of on that edge. Do I go back? What do I do? Who am I? She's right there. All these questions, all these thoughts going through her head, the confusion, the chaos, it's still there. What can you share with her?
And I had this happen with a young lady that told me that she was really in it, and I told her to know who she is, to remember who she is. And if you don't remember, start taking time for yourself to remember. You have all the power. Everything that you need is already within you. It is not outside of you. All of the answers, all of the power, all of it is within you. They may have tried to make you believe other things, but you. You may not
Mhm.
be trusting yourself right now, but that
Right,
just takes time because it took time for you not to trust yourself.
right,
Okay, so that's what you're going to be working on. You're going to be working on the things and thinking about what do I do? What do I desire? If you don't journal, I highly recommend that you start journaling. And I really call it recording. I like to write, but I also do voice recordings. So if you have the ability to do it on your phone, you can take back your power. Start using your power, and you start using your power by remembering who you are.
mhm, mhm,
Who am I? You ask yourself this question and you answer your question. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? All of those things to help, because I didn't know those things. I had totally forgot. It wasn't until I got to the life coach that because that helped me with the forward progress. The
Mhm.
therapist helped me with unpacking the past and realizing all the other stuff that was still there that
Mhm.
created that um,
Mhm. Mhm.
dynamic. So I would say remember who you are.
I love that.
Come back to yourself, because you're the person that is going to do all the work. No matter what, you're going to do the work, whether you're in it or whether you're out of it.
That's true. It's gonna be a
So you
cost.
have to decide. You need to be honest with yourself. What got you there is 9 times out of 10 is probably not being honest with yourself.
Mm.
Right.
That is so good. That is so good. And when you were talking about recording, the journaling and the recording, a word popped into my mind because you shared with her that she is powerful. There is strength inside of you, that you have everything you need on the inside of you. But the word that popped into my mind was voice.
Yep. That's your voice. Yep.
Voice. That we exercise our power and our authority through our voices. When you're recording, you're speaking to yourself on the recording, that's through your voice. Even when you're writing and you're sharing these experiences through your writing, there's still that voice going off in your head that,
Absolutely.
as you're writing. So it is in our voice.
Absolutely. That's how you
This
get
has
the
been,
power back.
yeah, this has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm super excited about this and I can't wait to get
Yeah.
this out to everybody.
Woo!
Get this out there. But thank you again for coming in. I know that you are healing hearts, ma'am. And so I thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability and sharing your story and how you're showing up now to
Absolutely.
help other women. And so you're walking in your purpose. And I absolutely love that.
Yep.
How can how can we get a hold of you?
Well, I am a business empowerment and mindset coach. You can reach me in social media at Disrupt Her Coaching, or go to DisruptHER Coach.com. And you can find me out here in these internet streets. Also, if you're on Facebook, I am Selina Kelley. So just my name, first and last name. And you can reach me that way. You can DM me, all of the things, either way that you are comfortable. I am also creating a community called the Village Healing Circle for narcissistic survivors. We are narcissistic survivors. I know if you're still in it, every day is you're surviving. If you've cut ties, my ideal client is the woman that has cut ties, because you cannot heal in an environment that is continuing to make you sick. It's still going to be those things. So you have to decide, you have to make the decision that that's something that you no longer want to do, to actually be able to work with me. But you are open to the community, so be looking out for that. We're working on that to bring it live within the next week or two, and it's called the Village Healing Circle.
I love that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right, ma'am. Well, once again, thank you. We will
Thank
definitely,
you.
we're going to share as we get this out there. We are going to share this and put all of your contact information as well in there. So yeah, so they can definitely get to you and join the community and continue to be empowered. So
Absolutely.
y'all. This has been another amazing episode of the Her Podcast, Healing, Empowerment, and Restoration. We want to thank our guest, our first on-air guest. We want to thank Selina Kelley for joining us today, the Disrupt Her Coach. I will post all of her contact information when we post this to Spotify and to all the social media platforms as well. So you'll definitely be able to get in contact with her to continue your healing journey, especially if you are her ideal client, working with women who have been impacted by narcissistic relationships.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's a wrap for us for this episode, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Take
Be
care.
good to yourself.